I think the funny thing is about like the music and like the puns and all of that is it's like a pretty outlandish movie, but that makes it feel so much more real because like humans make jokes. Like we don't go about our business and like not even when things are bad, right? Like we are like constantly making things into jokes. And so I think that if he took it like unbelievably seriously, it would kind of like suck you out of it almost. Like I actually appreciated the kind of like lighthearted bits that were brought into this cannibalism ring situation. Welcome to What Haunts You, a podcast about the stories that haunt our dreams. I'm Carly.
And I'm Katie. If you like what you hear, please come over and follow us on Instagram at What Haunts You Pod and tap the bell to get notified on Spotify when we release a new episode. Today we are talking about the Hulu movie Fresh. I think it's a Hulu movie. I think Hulu like actually made it and not
Oh.
like that it just came on there, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm going to look that up right now. I just said it.
Fact checkers get to it. But yeah,
Yeah.
but I really liked this movie. And this is one that you suggested to me, which was fun
Yeah.
because I it's fun to hear like what you end up finding, and you were definitely right that I would like it. You were telling me to watch it for a very long time and I'm not good at doing that. So it took a while. But then as soon as I did it, I was like, "Oh, yeah, we definitely need to talk about this."
Yeah, it's another original film from Hulu that I just kind of found randomly the same way I did with Clock. They're putting out good content, especially
Yeah,
horror related
yeah,
content.
I would agree. And this movie was just so fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's serious, but it like doesn't take itself so seriously, and it was just so much fun to watch. The plot is
Yeah.
unbelievable. It's like a really straightforward story, but like the little details are just so great. I mean, obviously we'll get into all of that, but just I had so much fun watching this movie.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it too, even the second time. And I think a lot of the fun, I mean, there's like fun camera angles and stuff like that, and there's like some cool lighting, but I think the music is a big part of what makes it like silly and kind of feel esoteric and not like normal really. And like yeah,
Mhm.
and I mean like times when they're like making puns about eating breasts and we're just like, oh okay. We're silly
Yeah.
and creepy. But
Yeah.
I learned a new word while looking up stuff about the music today, which I think is said diegetic. It might be diegetic, but it means that the music is you're supposed to believe that the characters can hear the music as well. It's not just like background.
Mm. Yeah.
And in the movie, the music supervisor said that at least half of the mood music is diegetic or diegetic.
Yeah, that makes sense because they're like dancing to it or singing to it or chopping up body parts to it in that just truly delightful meat packing montage. That was probably my favorite scene in the entire movie. It was just
Yeah.
so funny.
I like that a lot too. And it immediately gave me American Psycho vibes, that scene specifically.
Yeah, because he's just vibing. He's just like going
Hmm.
about his business in this kind of like mundane way.
And the like upbeat 80s music.
Totally, totally. Well, and I think the funny thing is about like the music and like the puns and all of that is it's like a pretty outlandish movie, but that makes it feel so much more real because like humans make jokes. Like we don't go about our business and like not even when things are bad, right? Like we are
Yeah.
like constantly making things into jokes. And so I think that if he took it like unbelievably seriously, it would kind of like suck you out of it almost. Like I actually appreciated the kind of like lighthearted bits that were brought into this cannibalism ring situation.
I agree. I also like when they did like the montage flashes. There's a few of them where they show the men unpacking the meat and like smelling the women's clothes and looking at their pictures and stuff. And there's
Mhm.
sometimes where they flash like there's like one longer scene where it shows them for a little bit longer, and then there's like a lot of them where it just kind of like flashes to them in between the main scene, I guess.
Mhm.
And I thought that was really interesting. I don't remember. I probably have it in my notes that I'll come back to, but there's like specific times when it happens where, I mean, I think a big theme of the movie overall is just like consumption and how modern dating is just kind of like treating people as disposable and using their bodies and then like not caring for them.
Right. And I mean, I think the kind of like core of the story, right, is like that modern dating eats you alive, right? Like that's what's
Yeah.
happening kind of like on its face, which is a fun little thing.
Yeah, I kept thinking of the phrase meat market related to dating
Yeah.
with this.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like
So
how it opens on like a really bad date and then she like thinks, I mean, what's his name?
his name's Chad, which I think is the most perfect thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that, but what's the main guy's name?
Steve. Well, I don't know.
Steve.
Is that
He has
does he use a fake name though? I kind
he
of
yeah,
forgot.
he does. Yeah, he uses a fake name, but Steve, I think it is Steve. So he Steve, I think, is like the epitome of like too good to be true. Everything seems like great at first, and then it's obviously not. But with Chad, I think like the comparison of those two guys, it's like the first date is awful and like not what she wants, but he like doesn't really get it. And yeah, we can
Mhm.
go into that more. But then Steve is like everything that she thinks she wants, and he's like ultimately a serial killer.
Yeah, it's very encouraging movie to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so when she's on the date with Chad, he's like such a typical just dude, right? Like he's just such a typical guy. He's
Mhm.
like sitting there talking with her about how she would just look so pretty if she would just like wear a dress, right? And like our generation doesn't care about being feminine and all that, like all this stuff. He's like shitty
Yep.
to the staff at the restaurant. He's just like the epitome of what dating men, like why dating men sucks so much.
And then his scarf like drags through his food slowly. That was so cringe.
I
And
know.
then he like asks her, he I mean, I don't really have a problem with he she's like texting her friend before she goes in and says that he said that the place was cash only, which I don't have a problem with that, but I feel like it's something that should have been said like not directly before you're going to dinner. Like it should have been
Mhm.
more in advance.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
like maybe don't choose a cash only place.
Right. I mean, also just like, right, the implication of like, don't expect me to pay for you is such a weird thing about dating where like I feel like you don't have to expect that, but it's just like weird to be like, you have not even met this person and you're just like, don't expect me to buy you dinner. Like, I don't know. It's just like a little bit weird. And like,
Yeah.
it, yeah, I don't know. It just kind of like it. I like understand why it was bad, and I also am like never been one to like really care if someone buys me dinner, but I like also would have been put off by a message like that as I was like walking into the restaurant.
Right. Yeah. And then after like saying that she's going to pay for her food basically, then he's like, "Oh, my brother's in town. Can I just take this?" And just like doesn't wait for her to respond and proceeds to take all of the food.
Yeah, he like packs up her leftovers and is like, I'm just gonna take this home with me. It's just like, what the
Yeah.
hell?
And something I don't remember seeing the first time, but the second time I definitely noticed was as they're walking out of the restaurant, there's like a close up on them in the kitchen chopping meat.
Hmm.
That's like, I don't know. I was also thinking a lot about Texas Chainsaw Massacre while watching this time and just like how meat consumption is questionable.
Mhm. Yeah, and it is interesting because this is such a, like such a different way of conceptualizing cannibalism. You know me, I love a good cannibalism story, like, I if it has cannibalism, I'm probably gonna like it, and
Mhm.
it's so interesting because, right, Texas Chainsaw is this like disenfranchised family who used to work in meatpacking and was kind of like modernized out of their jobs, and they are trying to feed their, I mean, obviously it gets turned into like they're kind of just violent and terrible, but it like the kind of origin story of it, right, is like we can't really afford to feed our family. And then there's this flip side of cannibalism, like the other version of the cannibalism story, which is I like very wealthy people who can have anything in the world want
Yep.
this and will
Right.
pay like huge sums of money to get it. You know what I mean? And I think that those are really interesting counterparts to each other. And those are kind of like the two general ways that that cannibalism stories will go.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. And then so he says like we should do this again sometime, and she's like I don't think we're a match, and then he says good luck finding a guy you stuck up bitch. And I think like every woman has had this experience of like a man coming on to them super strong, and when you turn them down they're like I didn't even want you anyways.
Totally, totally. Yes, it's like because then they're like you like then they call you a bitch, they call you ugly, they call you whatever
Mhm.
they can think of, and it's just and he even I think says like I was just being polite, and it's like no you like when at what point in this date were you polite?
Right.
I didn't see any point of you being polite.
Yeah. Yeah, the second time watching this, so, like, when she leaves the date, she's walking to her car, and she's parked in kind of, like, a back alley that's, like, dark, and I I was kind of like, "I don't know if I would've parked there in the first place, but I guess sometimes you have to," and she's walking with her keys in her fist, like, stuck out through her fist as so she can use
Mhm.
them as a weapon, and it looks like somebody is following her, and we eventually see after she drops her keys and there's like this really scary moment where it seems like she's going to be attacked, but it's a dad and a baby. I was thinking a lot this time about like how feeling unsafe and like when do we know if we're safe, and like the cues that make men feel safe to me, like the baby makes it be like, oh, okay, you're probably not going to attack me because you have a baby.
Mhm. Yeah.
But that's like not even necessarily true.
Yeah, oh my god, I, like, am thinking of so many stories of, like, couples who kill people together or, like, people using their children as, people do
Right.
crazy shit, you just, like, never know, and I think that that is a big kind of reason this movie is so interesting, right? Is like it's framing her as someone who is like
Cautious.
relatively careful, yeah, cautious. But then interestingly, right, like she meets this guy and she kind of like throws caution to the wind a little bit. I mean, she brings him back to her house on the first date, which like it's not a slut shame thing. It's just like a, like you're taking a risk by bringing a stranger to your
Yeah.
house.
Right.
You never know how that's going to go. And then there's also, like, after that, she's like, "Yeah, I'll go on this trip with you. I'm sorry, like, I'm not going on a trip with anybody I met one time."
It was unclear to me how long it had been. I didn't think it had been one time. I thought it had been like I mean, it had at least been 2 times because they also have another date, I'm pretty sure.
Yes,
But
but, like, just still, though, like, just this,
I mean, that's one
just,
of the
like, a
things I was
new
thinking about is, like,
person.
how long do you wait till you do know it's safe? Like, I was thinking of this guy who, uh, I liked him a lot, but I didn't wanna get that close to him because everybody had told me that he always sleeps with people and then stops talking to them, and I was like,
Mhm.
"Okay, I'll just, like, keep talking to him," and we, like, didn't hook up for the longest time. I think maybe, like, 2 or 3 months, and then I met his mom. He, like, had me over for dinner, and I met his mom, and, uh and this wasn't a situation where it was unsafe, but it's just, like, the unsavoriness
Yeah.
where, like, then I slept with him after that, and he never talked to me again after,
Yeah, what is this weird
multiple months.
yeah,
Like, I
what is
don't
this
know how
weird
you
need for
know.
conquest that men have, right? Like, of, like,
Yeah.
it's like a weird, yeah, it's very weird, and it's and I think it's kind of what the movie is about, right? It's like
Right.
how much of you can I get before I'm ready to just kind of call it a day
Right, right, like, he
instead
keeps
of
them alive while he's chopping them up
right, and
until
it's like you
yeah.
can only do that so much, and it's like when you are ready to say like, "Okay, like, I have, like, taken everything I can take from you, so it's time for me to move on."
Right, yeah, it's
Instead
like the
of
metaphor of stringing somebody along, and it's, like, the basis of the title of the movie, Fresh, like, keeping it. And people use that term in relationships too, like it's fresh.
Mhm. Yeah. It's definitely interesting. And I think that, yeah, I mean, I think that is the question, right? Of like, when do you decide someone is safe? And I mean, I would argue that like you can't ever fully decide that if you are not a man. And like really
Mm,
like if you're a man too to an extent, but I think especially if you're not a man. And I mean, even like I think like if you look at my last relationship, like I think that's a good example, right? I was never
right.
physically unsafe, but like you would think that after a certain amount of time you could say like, okay, this person is like emotionally safe, or this person is like
Mhm.
not going to like have been like fucking me over, right? And like that was just not the case. um
Yeah,
and you know, like it can, things can get flipped on their head so abruptly and like and so far down the line, like it's really scary, it's a really scary thing.
right. Yeah, one of the things I wrote in my notes is like I like whenever I meet men, I'm always looking for cues that make them feel safe, and like one of the things is a wedding ring or a baby, and like signs that they're like cared for or attached to somebody. That like
Hmm.
I've had better relationships with men who are married because they're like not being creepy most of the time. Not that married men can't be creepy, but like
Yeah, I was
the
gonna
way,
say.
and like you said, like couples who kill together, like I definitely, if I see a man with a woman, it makes me feel like they're more safe, which
Hmm.
is, I don't know, yeah. It's
I think
it's just annoying that
statistically
those
it's
things
true.
are.
Right.
I
I
hope
think like
so.
statistically it's true, but like you, it's still not 100, nothing is 100% ever. But also that's true if you go on a date with a woman. Like and nothing is 100%. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting though. And I think, I don't know, I felt like even though they only showed her go on one date and then they had the brief flash of like her trying to be on the dating app, she gets the like unsolicited dick pic. Like it's like it just felt
Right.
like they summed up a lot of very real stuff in like a pretty short amount of time. And I thought that was really, really effective.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the dick pic happens and then she goes to the grocery store. And when we're in the grocery store, that's like the first bright light. It was actually pretty shocking to me. It kind of like hurt
Hmm.
my eyes because it had been pretty dark up until that point. And most of the
Yeah.
rest of the movie is pretty dark. But I think that it's like he's her like ray of light there where she like
Hmm.
thinks that things are getting brighter. But also there's like still that really fucking weird guy in the grocery store who's like tasting the yogurt or whatever.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But it is
It's like
interesting, right? I think that, yeah. I think that one of the reasons that I think you're so like you'd be so hopeful is that like who meets anyone not on dating apps anymore, right? Like that's
mhm,
unless you're meeting someone through friends or whatever, but like I know very few people who didn't meet on dating apps. And
right.
so it's like this idea, right, of like meeting someone out in the wild, right? Like and
Yeah,
that like and there's this almost like kind of obviously fake sense that like that is somehow going to be more wholesome, that is somehow going to be more safe or whatever, you know,
mm,
whatever it is. But there is
yeah,
some kind of lie we tell ourselves that that makes it somehow different. And at the end of
right.
the day, you're going to dinner with a stranger. Sometimes, I mean,
Yeah,
unless you know what I mean, unless you're going on a date with someone you've been friends with for 10 years, like you know, which happens, but not that often.
yeah. I think it's also like romanticized a lot to just like randomly meet somebody and fall for each other. That's like
Hmm.
seen as much more romantic than definitely online dating, but like also other ways of meeting.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
like yeah, like you said, it's like not even safe or anything. Everyone I've dated who I didn't meet online was like people who I've known since high school or like my fiance I've known since elementary school.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it is, you know, and that and then it becomes different because your first date isn't like now we're strangers, right? It's
Yeah,
more like an exploration of kind of shifting your perspective of that person or like the way you interact instead of I
right.
need to find out stuff about this person. I need to find out if we're compatible.
Yeah, and
And
I think a lot of why I
mhm,
chose to try to date people I already knew was because I had a lot of not like scary, but just like gross or disturbing experiences with people online and like definitely a lot of dick pics. And I was like, I don't want any more
mhm.
fucking dick pics.
I literally can't even. It's the most aggravating thing to me, and I have like every time it happens, I like say something really direct. Like I'm always like, "Would you walk up to someone in a bar and pull your dick out?" Like
Right.
is that appropriate to you, sir? Like I don't understand. I just don't I really don't understand the compulsion to do that. It's
No.
like I'm like, is this just like the adult equivalent of like teenage boys and like the way that they're just drawing penises on everything? Like, what is the obsession with penises?
Mhm.
I don't get it. I don't get
Yeah. No, I've never been excited to get a dick pic.
it. No, never in my life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and then there's also, like, really calming music playing in the grocery store that I noticed that is, like, a different scene setting thing. I don't remember what the
Hmm.
music was before, but I think it was more, like, hyped up. And then the guy starts talking to her when they're in the produce, and he's talking about cotton candy grapes, which actually are so good if you haven't
Yeah,
tried them.
they used to be better though.
Oh,
That's the thing,
really?
because there was a time when cotton candy grapes like actually tasted like cotton candy, and they don't anymore.
Oh,
Now they just taste like a sweet grape, and I don't like grapes. I only liked cotton candy grapes, and I can't find good ones anymore.
huh. I can't imagine. I don't know if I've had ones that actually tasted like cotton candy. I guess a little bit, but I don't know. I've had ones that I really like, but I don't know if you would like them.
Probably not.
But I wrote in my notes that like he immediately starts using women to gain trust because he's talking about his
Mhm.
niece and his sister, and that's like the
Mhm.
same sort of thing as for me, like as being like my baby or my wife, except for like obviously you're not going to say those things if you're single and trying to
Mhm.
gain romantic interest from someone.
Right. And of course he wasn't either of those things, but she didn't know
Nope.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he asks, "Do you live around here?" And which like I don't like that question. I don't know. Like I just like instinctually will always say no to that
Mhm. I
cuz
have,
I don't like
actually
it.
mhm, on my, like, Hinge profile, I would put, like, a neighborhood close to mine that was not actually my neighborhood.
Yeah, fair.
So that you could have, like, because I don't, like, I don't need to be, like, dating someone who lives super far away and whatever, so, like, I want it to be reasonably close, but I'm also like, "No, I'm not telling you my neighborhood." Like,
Right.
no, no,
It's
no.
like when right. There's like so many you just kind of every time when you're deciding if somebody's safe, like there is an eventual time where you have to just kind of take the plunge and see if they're going to be safe or not. Can you close
Mhm.
that drawer, babe? Thanks. I've been the drawer, I left the drawer on my bookcase open and I've been worrying that the bookcase was going to fall forwards this whole time, even though it probably was. But yeah, I mean, like, even with people who you do know, they can be unsafe, but definitely
Mhm.
more likely with people
Yeah.
that
Well,
you
and this is
don't know.
like skipping ahead a tiny bit, but I think that this is like a good example, right? Because they like go on a couple dates, they have like consensual sex, right? Which you would
Right,
think would be some sort of turning point, right? Of like, well, you've already been in my house and I've already been in a very physically vulnerable position with you and you didn't take advantage of it.
right.
But then he still drugs her, and like I think I said this in It Follows. I know I
You
have always
did. What
thought
you were
this.
just saying reminded me of it follow what you
Right,
said.
like that, like the idea to me of like be like waking up drugged by someone you you've already had consensual sex with is so scary. Like that's so fucking scary to me because if you hadn't had sex with them, you would wake up and be like, "Oh, I know what happened." I like, okay. And like that sucks. That's awful. Like I don't mean to minimize that, but just like the idea of like waking up and being like, "I already fucked this person. Like what are they drugging me for? Like what do they have planned?" That's just so
Yeah.
scary. That's, like, next level to me.
Right, and I think in this movie, it is more of, like, what you would think of as being the worst thing versus
Right.
It Follows is, like, still bad, but, like, the guy is, like, trying to help
Mhm.
her
Mhm.
ostensibly.
Yeah, and you know me, like, my whole deal is, like, I don't want a slow death. I think that sounds so terrible. Like, this situation is, like,
Terrible.
something right out of a nightmare for me. I'm just like, "I'm gonna keep you alive as long as I possibly can." I'm just
I
like,
know, and you
Please
couldn't
do
even kill
not do that."
yourself.
Yeah, I'm like, "Please do not do that. Like, please just kill me today."
I know. Yeah. Ugh, especially because, like, I mean, it seems like he's giving them pain meds at least, but, like, probably not enough, and I don't know, it's just yeah, truly awful situation. Also, like, he could have
Mhm.
at least gotten some TVs for them or something. I know he gives Noah magazines because he likes her, but
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and at one point he even says to her like stress is bad for like the meat or whatever. And
yes.
it's like, well, you're not creating a particularly stress-free environment, Steve.
Right. Yeah. So they when they go on their first date, she ends up giving him her number in the grocery store, and then he doesn't text her for a while, and we see like a few scenes of her like checking her phone, and she's like hanging out with her friend and like talking about him, and like I don't know. I think everyone can relate to that situation too, where you're like, is something going to
Mhm.
happen? I kind of like this person. Are they going to reach out to me?
Yeah.
Especially if like they're the only one that has your contact information. And
Yeah.
then he asks her to go on a date. I was kind of wondering if he does that with like all of the girls too, because it does seem like he's sort of romancing Noah in a different way than he usually does.
Mhm.
And then he says he's a doctor and that he works
A
in
plastic surgeon.
plastic surgery. And and like says a story about like rescuing a kid or something, like something that like obviously everybody is going to be like, that's sweet, that sounds nice.
Mhm.
And then he asks about her family, which like also I don't know if I would feel comfortable giving as much detail as she did. Like, I don't know. I've just watched like too much true crime and too many murder
Mhm.
shows in general, but like I feel like somebody asking like it just seems like a clearly like is someone going to notice if you're gone kind of question.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I could see that, but I think it's also different once you're like actually sitting down with someone that you feel like you have chemistry with and like I don't know. I mean, I do think that like it's probably good to like emphasize it like if your family is not there that you have other people, right? But I
Right.
don't know. I don't think that that's one that makes me feel all that uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
it depends, and I think it's also like on the date with him, right? She starts talking. This is the part that I was like, this is me. But then I was like, oh, wait, this is not me. When she's talking about how she just like hates dating, right? And she just doesn't
Yeah.
like going through this process. And I think that that is something that can just make you want to like get through that stuff. You know
Right.
what I mean? And just be done with that part of it. And that I like definitely can relate to. Like, I think that's something that is so tedious and so exhausting, and she like vocalizes that, and so I think there is a piece of like, oh, like let me just like get through this part so
That
that we
makes
can move
sense.
on, and I do think that that makes it make more sense in my brain that she was willing to just kind of lay it out there.
Yeah. I also liked seeing the difference between the date with Steve versus the date with Chad. Like they kept zooming in on their eyes and mouths, and there was like very low, soft lighting. It seemed like, and you could tell that they were just like both smitten, I guess.
Hmm.
And then versus like in the Chinese restaurant, it was like brighter, harsher lighting, and they were like fully zoomed out the whole time.
It was very clinical.
Yes. And I think like a lot of the zooming on the mouths happens. I think that might have happened a couple times in the first date too, just because there's so much emphasis on eating in the movie,
Hmm. Yeah.
even before
Yeah.
we get to the, oh, we're eating human meat here thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true. Well, and it's interesting because the other difference is that like I think it is pretty clear that Steve is smitten with her, and I think that ends up being true. Like whatever his
Right.
intentions were and are, there is something about her that he's drawn to, and he actually does like her, which becomes evident, right? Like as the story plays out, that he feels
Yeah.
differently about her than he does about the rest of the people that he is, the rest of the women, right, that he has taken. And this is actually an interesting thing. I was thinking about this when I watched it, like when I rewatched it to talk about it, is like this is like a very flipped on its head horror trope of like normally like if you have sex you die. And
Mm,
she's almost like because you guys had sex like you might get to live, which is an interesting like paradigm shift there. I don't know
yeah.
exactly what I think about that, but it was just something that occurred to me.
Well, I think it's like that's one of the ways that women can find power. I thought that was somewhat realistic. Like, if you do have a man's sexual interest, you can sometimes use it to manipulate. Like, that sounds bad, but like, in a, like, sometimes if you're in danger, that's a way to keep yourself safe.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
And I think also like I liked that he had a wife and it looks like he also took her leg at some point. Maybe she was an amputee for another reason, but I think with the story, it's like pretty likely that she was in a similar position to Noah and ended up getting out of captivity to be in a different kind of captivity, I guess. And
Yeah.
she's also like definitely a symbol of like women who are not supportive of other women
Right, and the
not
friend,
helpful.
what was the friend's name? Molly at the end is like, "It
Yeah.
you bitches are the problem, like, you're the reason
Yeah.
this shit happens." It's like and
Yeah.
it's like, of course,
Right.
men are the reason it happens, but also, yes, like, right, like, those people who just enable
Right.
this behavior and enable the using and the abusing and just, like, the grossness of everything.
Right. And yeah, I don't know, like it was weird to me that the wife was still, and I guess like she was just so in it, but like after knowing that her husband was dead, she was still like, gotta preserve the meat, gotta, we've got customers. And I was like, oh no. I would think that you would be like, the witch is dead. Da, 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 da.
Right, it makes you really curious, like, what their origin story is, and, like, I actually had, like, the thought of, like, maybe she wanted in, and the only way she could get in was by, like, giving that piece of herself to it, I
Mm,
don't know, I was just very curious. I'm also very curious about, like, this business that he's running, and, like,
right.
I'm like, "Are you the only like, are you is this your business? Are you part of a bigger business? Like, what's the scale of this situation? How much money is actually changing hands?" Which there's
I was
some
wondering that
reference to.
too.
Right, there's reference when he feeds her, he's like, "Oh, this meal is worth whatever amount," but, like, we don't have.
$30,000 for the
Yeah, but
meatball.
yeah, but we don't have a clear picture of, like, the scale of this or how complex or intricate, like, the web of connections is. Like, I have so many questions. I would love, like, a prequel to this.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean,
I would like a
and the
prequel
funny thing
too.
is I probably wouldn't if they made it. I would probably be like, "This isn't very good," but, like, I'm so curious. There's
I
a
think
lot
they
of
could
stuff
do
I'm
it
curious about.
well. Cause like, he
Yeah, I
says he
think.
first eats meat when he's, like, 18, like, how the fuck did that happen? Like, there are you just, like, a psychopath and you killed somebody and ate them? Or, like, it sounded more like he was introduced to it somehow.
Right, like, there's just and I think the movie works super well without this information, so this is not, like, a criticism of the movie even, but it definitely yeah, like, I just was very curious about the rest of the information, but I think the movie functions really well with just what we have.
Yeah. So there's a few key points where characters look at themselves in the mirror really intensely, and one of them is before Noah's date with Chad, where she's like looking at her teeth and her hair and kind of seems to be noticing like signs of aging, not like dramatic aging, but just like I'm not 20 anymore aging.
Mhm.
And then after they sleep together for the first time in the morning, she like gets up to shower or something, and there's a mirror above her bed. And this is kind of like the first sign that he is creepy because he looks in the mirror, looks at himself, and is just like staring so intensely. And like you see that there's like no life in his eyes, and he seems like he's sort of maybe judging himself or like thinking about what he's going to do. I think like you said, like he does kind of seem like he has genuine feelings already for Noah. And so I think he's
Mhm.
like, okay, like I have to do this. I need that $30,000 meatball.
Yeah, well, it seems like he's having that moment of like, "Oh shit, like what did I get myself into?" Right? Like this
Mhm.
is supposed to be a simple operation and I have now complicated things in a big way.
Right. Yeah, and, like, we find out later that other women he's taken, he hasn't slept with, except for, like, if his wife was in the same position. I think that it probably went similarly, except for that instead of trying to get out, like, she kind of got Stockholm syndrome or something. Who knows how long she was in there. But it also makes me think of the like, when do you know you're safe kind of thing. Like, even if she went through all of that and became his wife and they have kids together, and then he's like still not satisfied and looking for somebody new.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then Noah's in the shower. She texts her friend, says that they had sex. She's like, I want to social media stalk him. And Noah's like, he doesn't have social media.
Yeah, and
And
Molly is like, "Red flag," and I'm like, "I agree."
yeah.
I'm sorry. You don't have to be, like, on it all the time, like, whatever, you know what I mean? It's probably best if you're not, like, super, super, super on social media, like, I know I, like, can be chronically online, but also, like, in this day and age, I don't know, man. Like, that's setting off some alarm bells there for me.
Yeah. I've dated some people who like weren't really into social media. I don't know if I've ever dated anyone who like legit had no accounts at any point in time. And yeah, I think that is weird. Then we go to another scene where I think they're on another date, but it seems like it's pretty soon after, but I don't think it was the same day. It seems like a little time has passed. And they're eating Chinese food at Noah's house.
Mhm.
And he's eating what I thought was meat with his hands. And but then he says that he doesn't eat meat when she offers him a beef short rib.
Yeah.
And then And then she said that he ruined it by, like, saying that he didn't eat meat and she didn't wanna eat it now. I was like, "That's really weird that he said that he doesn't eat meat." I wonder if he, like, really does just only eat human meat.
I feel like that wouldn't surprise me with, like, his character.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, yeah, it's definitely interesting, and I think, and I kind of wonder, like, is that also somehow, like, an attempt to build some sense of safety as well, right? Of like, "Oh, I don't like to harm living things."
Yeah, I could see that. And they start dancing in the living room. That's, like, their first dance scene, which comes up again later. And
Mhm.
then, he asks if she's told anyone about him, which, like, knowing the movie seems kind of sketchy, but that is, like, a normal question, I guess. And she says
Yeah.
that she told Molly, and they're dancing, and there's, like, really orangey toned light. There's a lot of orange tones all throughout the movie.
Mhm. And red.
Yep. So much red. Blood
Mhm.
red.
Yeah. I'm reading The Shining, so, like, in my head right now, I'm like, "Red rum."
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, so and when they're dancing, it is like, I don't know, like, their dates are very sweet, like, they seem to be
They
getting
are.
along really well, it really does seem to, it seems to be going well, and I will say, in another universe, this movie is a love story,
Mm.
and she tries the food, and she loves the food, and they're gonna be these 2 fucked up people doing this fucked up shit, like, like, that movie exists in another universe, I swear.
I mean, I think that's the him and his wife story. It just doesn't last because he's still looking for something else.
I don't know, I don't feel like I have enough info on the wife situation to, like, read it as that.
Mm.
I mean, it is like, it's like, it is a love story to some extent, but we don't know what level was coercion. We don't know, like, we just don't have the info. So I don't know. But I do think, like, in the scene where where he feeds her some people meat, I do think there is another movie to be made where she really likes it, and she is like, "Oh shit, this is, like, amazing." And now
Yeah.
I feel conflicted about this. But actually, I have a question for you. If you were gonna
Mm.
have to eat people meat and you had no choice, but your only choice was, would you rather eat your own people meat or someone else's people meat, what would you choose?
Definitely my own.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Because she was like, "Is this me?" And she sounded like, she was hoping it wasn't, almost. And I was like, "Oh, I would hope that it was in that situation." Like, Jesus Christ.
Right, I think that's, like, the thing with meat, like, I don't know, like, I almost feel like it would be better to eat people than other animals if there were people who wanted to give up their meat. Because I feel like it would be better if it could be consensual, which is like why I would want to eat my own meat because I could agree to
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Well, that even kind of like that like makes me think of that one, the German guy who like killed the guy consensually to eat his meat or whatever, and how
I don't
cannibalism
know.
is like not a crime in a lot of places, but like because assault is a crime and murder is a crime, it like is like, you know, you how do you do cannibalism without crime? But then there's the guy
Right.
who ate his foot in tacos with like a bunch of his friends, you
What? I
know.
do not know as
You've
many
not heard that
cannibalism
story?
stories. No.
Wait, you've not heard that story? Okay, there's a guy who got I think he got in a motorcycle accident or something. I don't know. He got in some sort of accident and his foot was like shattered and they were basically
Okay.
like you're never going to be able to walk again. Like you have a couple different options. Like we could try to get your foot to heal, but it's not going to heal correctly. Like it won't be usable or we could like amputate it and get a prosthesis and he decided to amputate it and get a prosthesis and he took the meat home and he invited like some of his friends and like space and he didn't like fuck with them. He like told them what he was doing and was like, I want to do this. Like I think this would be an interesting experience. There's no real downside to it. I already lost my foot. Like I'm not you know what I mean? He's like, I'm not gonna like cut my other foot off, but like, you know, like
Right.
this here we have it. And he made like foot tacos. He made tacos with the meat.
That's so funny that he made tacos. Also, I feel like a foot doesn't have that much meat in it, but maybe it does. I don't
That's
know.
probably why they did tacos because then it could be like dispersed, I
Yeah.
guess. But yeah, like and like his friends ate it too. Like several of them did it. Like ate it.
I'd eat my friend's foot taco.
Good to know. If I ever shatter my foot, I will give you a call. We could do
Thanks.
it. I would rather
Sounds
not
good.
shatter my foot though. Just like giving that
Yeah.
disclaimer. I would like for that to not happen.
Right, right.
I sprained my ankle last year. I hope that's the worst injury I ever get. That was a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, then he says that they should go away and asks like what the soonest she could go is, which like I also felt like that question was kind of weird, but I don't know. It's like I don't know. It's there's all of these things that are like they can be normal or they can be weird, and that's why it's like so hard to tell.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the timeline isn't super clear. I felt immediately, and I think I would have felt this way regardless of the movie, like knowing what the movie was about. Like I felt like this is crazy. I'm like, you've met this person only a couple of times. I can't believe you're gonna like go potentially be stuck somewhere with them. I wouldn't do that platonically.
I think I would do that, but I would not drive in the same car. I would be like, I'll meet you there.
I guess. I don't know.
And what I really don't like is that he doesn't say where they're going. I would definitely not go on like a I don't know where we're like I mean
A
just cuz I have to
surprise
figure
trip.
out what I'm going to eat, what am I going to wear? Like what? You can't just take me some random
Yeah.
place.
Right. I'm like, I need every piece of information you have to
Right.
plan accordingly.
And Molly says this is a straight girl's
I
fantasy come true, right?
I know, which is so funny. It was like such a good reaction.
Yeah. But Molly also like is like where are you going? And when she's like I don't know, she's like mm that's not right.
Yeah. Molly has good instincts, which is nice. Like she
Yeah.
just is like she's just on top of it and like does her little sleuthing work. It doesn't go super duper duper well for her, but like she really like is not pulling any punches. I mean,
Yep.
she goes to Steve's house, she sees that he's married, he has a whole family, and she's like ready to go in there. She's like, "You know what? Fuck it. Like I don't know what's going on. My friend is missing. I'm gonna blow this up. Like I'm just gonna go in and see what I'm just gonna go
I
talk to
thought
these people."
she made some poor choices there though. Like especially I don't know. Like I don't know if I would have gone in the house. I think she thinks that the wife is safe and that she's like maybe you don't know your husband's doing this. But
Hmm.
especially when she called Noah's phone while she was inside, I was like, "Damn, at least wait till you get outside to
That's what
do
I was
that."
thinking too. Yeah. Yeah.
Not good. So then he says that they're going to something grove. I forget where it is.
Cottage
Yeah,
Grove,
Cottage Grove, I think that's right. And
which
she says
even
she has
sounds
no
like a fake.
service.
I know that it's real in the context of the movie, but it even just sounds like a fake Hallmark town. Like I don't know, like
Yeah,
Cottage Grove.
yeah. And then as they're driving, like they make the drive seem pretty long. It's like zooming in and out of the street and then in the car, and the music gets like spacey and looping, and he's like, it's getting pretty late, like let's just stay the night at my house, which I also was like, why did you not plan this better? Like, I don't know, that I don't like that. I would have already been like, suspicious, but I guess she already doesn't have service at this point.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like he could have just, like, asked her to spend the night at his place because she had spent the night at or he had spent the night at her place several times. So I
Yeah,
don't know
but I
why
think
he didn't just say, "Come stay over."
because it's easier if people think she's gonna be gone for a few days,
Mm, yeah, I guess
right?
that
Like,
makes sense.
it gives him kind of like a cushion of time where people might be, like, more okay with not really hearing from her.
Yeah. And then, he has, like, a ridiculously nice house where it's like, "Okay, I knew you were a doctor, but, like, damn, that's a nice house."
Yeah.
And she says, "Kinda disappointing," like, jokingly, which
Yeah.
she's fun.
She's so funny.
And then there's, like, more glowy orange lighting, and she's wearing red, and he's wearing blue, and he says the Wi-Fi must have gone out, which again is like, I don't like this. I'm already like, no." And she just, like, seems chill, at peace. She's like, "Damn, I really made it. Look at this house. I'm doing great." I was like,
Yeah.
"Fuck." She's too won over by him. I don't like this. Then he's making a drink, and I was like, "You don't even wanna watch him make that drink?"
Yeah. My headphones just died, but I think we recorded one time without my headphones. So I think
Yeah,
it'll be okay.
okay. And then she goes up to this painting and almost touches it, and it, like, looks like skin, and we find out later that behind that is, like, where he's hiding all of the women's possessions, and he kind of, like, distracts her and brings her away from it when she's, like, about to touch it, and then she's drinking the drink, and he goes, "Do you notice any interesting flavors in there?" Which is kind of like, "Do you taste the poison?"
Oh, I didn't think it was "Do you taste the poison?" I think it was, like, to get her to take more sips of it.
Yeah, I think that it also was that
Right? Because if you're
because
like, "Oh, like, can you tell what the secret ingredient is?" You're gonna, like, take a sip and, like, and then you're gonna take another sip. You're gonna, like, try like, drink it till you figure it out kind of
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, and the camera was, like, very zoomed in on her while she's taking sips, and then all it would pan to him and be really zoomed out,
Yeah. Yeah, they did a
and
good
sh
job of filming that scene in a way that felt disorienting.
yeah, for sure. She says, "You're all, like, fancy cocktails, and I'm pancakes out of a bag," and I think, like, that's part of why she's willing to, like, let go of some of her cautious nature maybe, because she's like, "Wow, he, like, really has his stuff together and I don't," and, like, she just feels like she should go along with it.
Yeah. Yeah, like, it's an opportunity.
Right, and then we see that her vision is sort of graying out, and it's like, "Oh no, I thought this was gonna happen." And then that was all the fucking intro up to that point, half an hour into the movie.
Yeah. I remember when I watched it the first time when it got to because I kind of expected it to just maybe not have the title after a certain point, like, have a title screen, or to,
Right.
like, do the title screen at the end, like how sometimes, you know what I mean, like, the movie ends and then you get the title screen. And I just remember being, like, almost, like, even more disoriented by the fact that the title screen came up because I was like, "Wait, how long have we been doing this? What's happening?" Like,
Right.
which I think is cool, like, I actually think it works really well, but it was just funny. I was like, "This is weird.
Yeah.
I'm confused."
Right, it works great, and I also think they could have sped through the intro, like, they could have done all of that much shorter, but it is really good that they didn't, like, it does make you be like, "Is he sketchy? Am I being unreasonable?"
Mhm.
It puts you more, like, in her actual position.
Right. Well, and I think I know before we started recording, I said that this movie does not have that much plot. And I think that I still feel that way, but I think that what it has a lot of is like character. You know what I mean? Like it's like it's a very like people driven instead of plot driven story. Um,
Mhm.
because the things that make it interesting and like compelling are these two people's personalities and like how they interact with each other and like the dynamic that gets established and then obviously that dynamic gets flipped on its head but then this new dynamic gets established, you know what I mean, like that's like where the meat of it is like less in the plot and more in the
Heh,
people.
meat. Yeah,
Unintentional but very welcome.
yeah. And then after the title screen, I love the music that starts playing, and there's just like this trippy tour of the house and like all of the art and just kind of like showing the opulence and like obviously he makes a lot of money. You're just kind of like, hmm, what's going on here? And like the credits are going, the opening credits, and there's like what I wrote in my notes is blood looking shit, which I don't even remember what I said.
Nice.
And then she wakes up on a mattress in the basement. She doesn't know where she is. And he says, how'd you sleep? And she's like, just kind of disoriented, doesn't really know what's happening yet, and is still like, oh, there's the guy. Like, and he says he drugged her. And she's like, haha, you're kidding. And then and we hear her chains rattling
Hmm.
and it zooms out and we see she's just like on the floor in a pretty empty room with a red carpet and just a pillow and a blanket, and she like starts freaking out and he says, I'm going to tell you what's going on but you can't freak out. And she's like, what the fuck? And she starts like actually realizing what's happening and
Yeah.
starting to freak out more and more,
Yeah. Literally
and
reducing her to a
he's like
piece of ass.
creepily calm.
Okay, so
And
I
there's
think
like
we're going to
some
stop this
trippy
episode
beach
here
art,
and
I
cover the
think,
rest
on
of
the
the
wall.
movie
There's like a
in a part
mural
two.
that I
So
think is
we
like a
will see you
sunset
next
or
time.
beach or
Yeah.
something. I don't know. And
Yeah.
there's several
Was.
mirrors on the wall as well where we see more of people looking in mirrors and examining themselves. And he says, are you going to rape me? And or she says that and he's like, no, no, no. And the music is like really slowly descending and so creepy, so good. And then he just like screams to snap her out of it. And then he tells her that he's going to sell her meat and that people pay money for it and that he's going to keep her alive as long as she acts right.
Mm,
And then he says, stop being so dramatic. Like, bro,
right.
what would who's going to just be like, oh, okay, that's fine. Sounds good.
Yeah. I think that's just such a man thing to say.
Yep. And Molly keeps leaving her voicemails, and and he's like texting back from her phone being like, ha ha ha, having so much fun, see you later. And we hear a phone call actually between them earlier before she's kidnapped that says, where like they say I love you to each other, and then
Hmm.
in the text, like one of Molly's first hints that something is wrong is that she says I love you. And I think that fake Noah, Steve, texts like a heart back or something. And she's like,
Yeah.
she always says, love you. What the hell?
Yeah. This is a good reason to tell your friends you love them.
Yeah.
Hey, Katie, I love
I
you.
love you. And then she hears another girl's voice and she's like, help me. And, and she's like, I can't. We're in the same boat. And she's like, somebody has to be looking for you. And Penny, the other girl, is like, I don't have much family. And she's like, fuck, same. And then we hear another girl who's like lost it and is just kind of like singing to herself. Um, and Noah's like, we got to get out of here. And then it goes to Molly at work and she's like starting to do some more sleuthing and she's listening to a song. Then one of the lyrics is, I let you take a piece of me.
Oh, damn. I
And
don't think I noticed that.
it actually sounded pretty similar to me to the song that Melissa was singing. It kind of went in from like Melissa singing to Molly listening to it.
Oh,
Um, and Steve messages Molly. That's like when the heart I love you happens. And then Molly image searches a picture that Steve sends and finds that it's from a website. And she's like,
so
okay,
smart.
something fucking sketchy is happening here.
Hmm. Yeah. And then
Then
they
we
find.
have the American Psycho Steve butchering scene, and the song Obsession is playing, which is so good.
Yeah, I am so obsessed. I can't even tell you how obsessed I am with that scene. It is so fun. The meat is so fake looking. Like it's all so it's very campy and just
Yes.
like it's just delightful. He is like dancing around and like playing around and he's just like it's like in any other if he was surrounded by anything else it would be so cute, but it's obviously not cute.
Yep.
And I just love it so much. And then we also, I think that's like where we get more of the kind of shots of different people like unpacking the meat and stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting when they flashed through all the different people who buy and eat the meat that he harvests,
Right?
is
Yeah.
the different ways that they have it prepared, right? So we see people who kind of do what he does, where they're having like these like gourmet meals and like it happens to be people meat. And then there's like people eating it raw. And then there's like one guy who's like eating it out of a dog bowl. Like there's just like a lot of like really wild and interesting
Right, there's definitely an
versions.
implication that it's kind of like a kink for some of these people.
Totally, totally. But it doesn't seem to be for Steve.
No, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
He definitely has, like, I mean, I think he is a psychopath, but I think he has, like, separated himself enough from the people for the most part that he's like, "Okay," like, I think, yeah, this is the part that reminds me of Texas Chainsaw Massacre or, like, just meat consumption stuff in general, where he's like, "I just have to do this to keep my livelihood and meat consumption going." I also kept thinking, like, he was getting his fingerprints all over that shit. He must, like, know for sure where it's going, and, like, I just I was surprised that he wasn't more careful to not get his fingerprints on things.
I think that's why I wondered what the scale of it was, because he seemed like he had his own kind of like, it was either his own delivery service or he was a part of something big, you know what I mean? It's not super
Yeah.
clear, but it's like clearly delivered within like this group of people, and like everything is done just within this little group. And
Yeah. I would assume he's not the only one butchering because it is, like, an exclusive thing, but I don't think that the people who are buying it would risk losing access to it by it only being one person.
yeah, but I'm curious if it's like like if it's like an organized ring, or if they just like have multiple suppliers, I guess is more what I mean.
Right.
Like I
Yeah.
would yeah, but I think you're probably right about that, that like they wouldn't like take the risk of having just one person. But and I think when the wife jumps in at the end and is like, we have to preserve the meat, that also makes me feel like maybe there is like a more organized, like larger structure at play to it, but it's still not really
Yeah.
clear. But
Right.
I think that that's also part of it, right? Is like you wonder how, like you almost start to wonder like how does he vet these people, and like what have these
Mhm.
people had to like do to prove to him that they can be trusted with this.
Right.
And
For
like yeah, like do they have to supply a victim at some point? Like there's so many like ways like that it could go, but it's like you just wonder, right? Like does he have like some sort of expectation of like, you need to commit some sort of really bad crime and like give me the proof of it or whatever. I'm just like very curious about those kind of broader elements of the
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, I wonder about that too. So then she has to take a shower and, like, he's being kind of playful with her and she's, like, still like, I've been kidnapped."
Mhm.
And he says, "I'm still the guy in the bar from that night." It's like, "Are you though, bro?"
Which is like such a man thing to say also.
Yeah. And he grabs her face and says, "Are you gonna be good?" Ugh. And then she tries to escape. They, like, fight and he knocks her out, and then she wakes up and they're in his surgical theater, which is, like, super intense with lights, and the walls are all mirrored because 'cause I'm sure he loves watching himself doing this.
Well, he also doesn't have like like I think that some of it is also like seeing it from all angles, and because he has no nurses and stuff.
Maybe. There's also some bright poppy 80s music here, I don't remember what song it was,
Mhm.
and then she wakes up and he's like, "Don't worry, you won't feel a thing, I gave you an epidural," and he's like, "I'm taking your ass, you lost my trust and there has to be consequences."
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, literally reducing her to a piece of ass. Okay, so I think we're going to stop this episode here and cover the rest of the movie in a part 2. So we will see you next time.